A torn ACL may have ended his 2025 season early, but Green Bay's Tucker Kraft started to look like one of the best tight ends, if not the best, in the NFL last year. In just 8 games last season, Kraft caught 30 passes for 469 yards and 6 touchdowns. Those are really solid numbers, but the underlying metrics are even more impressive. Kraft led all qualified tight ends last year with 15.3 yards per catch and 10.8 yards after the catch per reception. No other tight end in football had more than 7.4 yak per catch. The Packers tight end was also second in yards per route run at 2.33 behind only Dalton Kincaid, while quarterbacks posted a near perfect passer rating when targeting him at 157.2, the best of any player at any position. There might be some concerns about how Kraft will look coming back from a torn ACL, but the 25-year-old revealed last week that he's expecting to be ready for Week 1 without any kind of pitch count. That's great news for Packers fans, who have quickly fallen in love with the man from South Dakota who seemingly ended the team's curse of third-round picks. So let's show you why Packers fans are so excited about the potential of Tucker Kraft and why he already might be the NFL's best tight end in today's episode of Best Available. Thank you for watching today's episode. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube if not already, and give us a follow on socials at BestAvailableYT. Huge thank you to our members, as always, who continue to support the channel. If you'd like to, I'll leave details to that in the episode description. Just $2.99 a month, you get full access to my NFL Draft Big Board, which is constantly being updated with notes, grades, rankings, up to 40 prospects, and we consistently, talk about a lot of those players on this channel. So, great way to support us. Link in the description to check that out. But I know why you're here. It is for one of the most entertaining players in football, in Tucker Kraft. I had to go back to the well and talk about a Packers player because I don't think the average fan understands just how special Tucker Kraft is. A lot of those metrics we talked about, passer rating when targeted, yards after the catch per reception. You're going to see a lot of that today. Just a really consistent pass catcher. And we'll talk a little bit about the blocking as well. But we're going to start Week 1, against the Detroit Lions. First play of the game. Packers are trying to get a tell here by motioning Jacobs back out and then back in. They don't really see a guy following him. They see more of a bump in coverage. So they're feeling like it's more of a zone, zone indicator based on that. So what we're going to do here, we're going to run a post with Dontavian Wicks. We're going to run some kind of inside, in-breaking seam with Kraft. That's a terrible arrow. And then we're going to run a wheel with Jacobs. And, ideally we're trying to design this, I imagine, for this wheel route to Jacobs, with all these in-breakers trying to, force inside leverage. But Kraft just manages something I really noticed in this video. His play speed is legit, way better than I expected and remembered. But he's going to use that to separate against, a linebacker and catch them in conflict here. So as we roll this, we got that bump in coverage. Apologies, he's not with Anzalone. He's with Jack Campbell. So, we get off this pass rusher that we're going to release, and we're just going to, win a foot race against this linebacker. So we're going to get into that soft spot of the zone, behind the linebacker whose head is now turned, in front of the safeties. We've got this little hole throwing window we need to make sure that we can exploit, because if we throw this too late, we got a safety over the top that could take our head off. So you can see Love's already anticipating that. The ball's out, off that hand. He's getting ready to throw it. So we've got that separation speed from Kraft, but what I really like on this play, you can see it starts to separate even more and more and more. We found that window. Great job high pointing that football. That's one thing about him. He's dense and is built like an inline Y that's kind of like a, throw your nose in as a blocker and then look a little goofy as a pass catcher. Despite how he's built, he runs like a slot tight end. It just gives him such a unique skill set. Not only can he run and outrun this linebacker, then he has the athleticism to high point this football. That's a great play all around. I'll rewind it so we can watch the whole thing in one motion. Exit motion there, gets inside release, beats that linebacker. Great throw by Love, getting into that hole. And then I just love he starts talking to Brian Branch, a guy that's, given him problems, been a dirty player against the Packers, always diving at people's knees. Kraft is not the kind of guy you want to talk smack to or try and throw dirty hits and do. He is wired a completely different way than the average tight end. And I think that's why Packers fans love him so much and why he earned that little C on his chest this year. When it comes to blocking, I actually, after watching this video, I really prefer Kraft. As one of these move tight ends, he does a lot of good like cut blocks on split zone where he's coming across the formation and kicking out a guy, the end man that's unblocked. As an inline guy, we'll talk a little bit more about that. He's a fine blocker. He's probably above average if I'm being real. This is a good example of like his play strength showing up to the point it creates a miscommunication. We're going to climb to Alex Anzalone right here. And we've got Sean Ryan pulling across the formation. So ideally, we're trying to pull here and seal and allow Ryan to climb and find the next threat. We end up displacing Anzalone, I think, in the wrong direction, essentially. Again, reminder, those two tight ends, Kraft is right there. As we climb here, you see great job of displacing Anzalone and throws him out, out the way. So, not where we originally wanted to seal here, but ends up working. And then we've got a little miscommunication because Ryan's pulling. He's initially thinking, "Am I climbing up to Campbell? Is that what's happening?" And then he's like, "I guess I'm looking here." I think him and Kraft just aren't on the same page. We end up blocking two guys with one. It's still a nice play, and then Kraft helps push the pile, helps get Jacob some more yards after contact. Love the effort there. Just a little miscommunication here. You can almost see Kraft as he engages. He kind of looks back for Ryan, like, "Oh, did I block the wrong guy?" Yeah, you can see him kind of look back at like Campbell. Just a little miscommunication here, but you can see the play strength, just the way he quickly displaces the linebacker and just kind of tosses him out the way. The miscommunication's a little, not ideal, but again, if you're going to be wrong, make up for it. And this is a great job of that. You're just pushing the pile. And I don't even know if Kraft's wrong here. It just feels like, one of those chemistry things. It's week one, a little miscommunication with a pulling guard on who's supposed to be picked up. Maybe they watch this on film and know how to correct it in the future, especially early in the season. But again, after, something like that, finish the play. Just finish the play. And I always give Kraft credit for that. He wants to make sure he's playing through the whistle. Moving on to the Commanders game in week 2. I think this was Thursday Night Football. They had the all-whites. Say what you will about the all-white helmet and everything. I know people have a lot of thoughts on that. We're going to see another example of that awesome effort and play strength from Kraft here. Just a chip release. We're going to delay that release. We're going to block here. Nice job of throwing off the defender right there, getting into the flat, getting the ball. That's not why I'm showing this play. Like, that's just pretty standard. Okay, Tyler, he chipped and released into the flat. Who cares? This is why I wanted to show this. He's not just getting out of bounds past the first down marker, right? He's like, all right, he's not satisfied with like, okay, I got the first down. Let's move on. He's cutting back upfield, lowering those pads. Look at the forward lean, low pad level, driving those feet, gets twisted backwards. And you're like, all right, you did a good job. You could have quit here and you got another, 3-4 yards. And he's like, I'm still not satisfied. There is one, two, three guys actively tackling him. We've got a 4th and 5th coming right here. And he's just like, no, I will. He takes another big step and ends up getting like another yard or two because of that. This is the kind of thing that I think this is why Packers fans have completely fallen in love with Tucker Kraft. It's just the effort of not going out here, getting upfield, and then just willing his way, that extra step over the defender to get like another yard or two. He fights for every single yard he can get. It's why he led the league in yards after the catch per reception, despite only playing in 8 games. Just really remarkably impressive after the catch. You got to give credit. I know a lot of people have a lot of things to say about Matt LaFleur and the offensive staff right now, but you want to talk about exposing a weakness against the Commanders. They knew that these linebackers were not up to par as far as, where they should be. A lot of name recognition, but Bobby Wagner was just not the same player last year, and they really wanted to go after them with Tucker Kraft and, with some tight ends. Really fun concept here. We're, motioning out Savion, and we're going to send him deep to, hold this defender. And then we've got, a pair of tight ends right here. We got Kraft in line, and we're going to outside release him from the outside tight end who's going to get inside. And we're going to create kind of like a natural seam and a mismatch here with Kraft. I believe he's right here. So as we roll this, you can see, yep, that's Kraft. We're going to go underneath this edge. We're going to climb here. We're going to be so focused with, I believe that's Musgrave, who's going to climb upfield. We're going to create a mismatch there. Oh, sorry. He ends up going to the flat. He ends up, dropping to the flat. And then all of a sudden we got Bobby Wagner. Again, 40-year-old Bobby Wagner. No disrespect to Bobby Wagner. Of his era, one of the best off-ball linebackers. It's just age has really caught up to him, and it's a real shame. But that's a clear mismatch. 54 on 85 is probably what they wanted the entire game. And you can just see, man, like the natural play speed Wagner gets off his zone. They mess up the landmark. Great concept to get Kraft wide open. And it's another example. I want you to just watch this from Kraft's perspective. Keeps dispelling the notion watching him on film. I just keep remembering him as this bulky, athletic, but, bigger inline guy. The play speed here on this play really shows up of just how he can separate. Then he gets the ball in wide open space, and he's just kind of gone for a while. Yes, guys catch up to him near the end, but the fact that he can run like this on a play like this, like you start to see some of the speed. He doesn't, the way he runs doesn't look fast, but it's not slow. He can really move when he gets a full head of steam. Another chip release. Again, we just had a really common theme in this game of how I get Kraft involved. Delayed releases put stress on linebackers and second level defenders. So, we're going to slow this defender down a bit with that chip, and then we're just going to go out into the flat again. Suddenly we're one-on-one with number 3, who looks like he's half the size of Kraft. And word of advice to defenders in the National Football League: if you're one-on-one with Tucker Kraft, don't tackle him up here, because you're about to see what happens. Look, high pad level, not getting low, not diving at the knees. He's trying to tackle at the shoulders. At any level, I'd be annoyed by that tackling technique. But he's literally just like, maybe if I just use my momentum and hit him high, something will happen. No. Kraft just throws him out the club. I think it's the best way to say that. Just nope. No thank. It doesn't even look like he's trying to throw him off. It's just that easy for him. And then he gets the first down and more. Again, lots of yak, and he's fired up afterwards, and rightfully so. That's a hell of a play after the catch. I'll show it one more time. I just had too much fun with that. Throw into the flat, one-on-one, throw him off, get another like 10, 15 yards after the catch. Pretty similar concept to that one. We had that huge explosive play wide open. We're going to do something similar. Inside release here. We're going to, motion out here, and we're just going to get kind of that wheel concept again. We're going to have defenders trying to attack the flats and the zone coverage. We're just going to find that soft spot with our scheme. Great job by the Packers all around. So Savion's motioning outside. Inside release from Wicks, trying to draw some eyes and hold some defenders. This guy's so worried about the flat. He's not really worried about the route concept, so he's breaking out there. Hopefully, like maybe a running back will go into the flat, but because of Wicks' inside release, these defenders are focused here. This outside motion from Savion, I know my big ass head's in the way. We're focusing on this defender right here. So suddenly, man, like tons of green grass. Seemed like a really staple coverage the Commanders wanted to run, because the Packers seemed like they always knew it was coming and then knew how to attack it with Kraft. Man, like you can't get more wide open than this in the NFL. And then nice cut here. He's just trying to maximize his yards after the catch, as always. But I just really enjoy that the Packers understand the kind of weapon they have in Tucker Kraft. And they're like, when we see mismatches, we are going to force feed him. Because week 2 really felt like a coming out party for Kraft to let everyone know, like, hey, I am ready to take on that throne and, start being in the conversation as one of the best tight ends in football. I really love this play from Kraft, because not often do we get to talk about mental toughness on film. We've been lucky in past couple of videos. We've had opportunities to talk about it. There's only a couple of things that you can really make non-negotiables in football, and they're usually physicality and effort. I just need you to work through stuff, and it's like, I don't care if you make a mistake. I care how you respond. This is just a great example of not giving up on a play. We've got Kraft here, and as we roll this, he's going to get, just totally, we end up drawing an illegal contact here because this guy's just refusing to let go of him. I think he's a little embarrassed about getting tossed out the club earlier. So you'll see the flag come in, I believe. There's the flag. You saw it right behind number 3. He just got, held all the way past the sticks. Again, it's 3rd down, by the way, so this is an important play. Kraft's not complaining about getting held the whole way. You don't see him, like, throwing his arms up, anything like that. Then he slips down. And so it's like, not only did you get held all the way downfield, you've slipped. The ball's already out. Are you just going to quit on this play? Kraft gets back up, gets back to the ball, works back towards it. We move the sticks. We end up declining the illegal contact. We get past the sticks. We have a bigger play than if we had taken the penalty. This is what I talk about with mental toughness, man. Like, this isn't fair, right? You end up getting the flag for it. They might not call it, but you just kind of get, taken for a ride all the way downfield, separate, you slip as the ball's in the air, but you work back to the football. Like, this is all just, great effort, and really caps off. It was just a tremendous day against the Commanders for Kraft. Just a great sign of the effort and the way that he plays. We keep talking about playing through the whistle, man. Kraft embodies that. I lied. We still have one more game to talk about with Tucker Kraft because, of course, we do. What a game he had in this one. We've got him here. We're going to sell play fake, and then we're just going to rip off and run to the corner. Does an excellent job of selling that on this play. We motion Jacobs the other side. Just he goes into this like a run play, right? Like he's got his wide base. He's stepping up to engage with this defender. He even engages, and then he just rips off. And by the time he rips off, he had sold it so well. Poor number, I think it was number 3 again. Yep, that dude had a bad game against Kraft. Just poor guy, just kept getting abused. It felt like, but I love how well Kraft sells the fake to the point 3 has is not prepared at all to take this on. He just really sells it, then throws him off, and he's got that speed to separate, especially when he catches a defender flat-footed. And then you got to do. You got to go in for the Lambo leap. I absolutely love it. Just want to talk about someone that just really talk about carrying the G. Shout out to Nagler and the Cheesehead TV guys. Always talk about carrying the G. Repping the organization how you want it to. Kraft is just has embodied that since arriving. After showing you 2 games early in the season, we're going to show you 2 games later in the season before Kraft tears his ACL. Show you just kind of, it felt like he was really hitting his stride against the Cardinals and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, that Steelers game is going to be etched in my memory for a long time with how well he played. We got Kraft here. When you have an athlete like Tucker Kraft, the way he's built and the way he runs, you can run some tight end screens. So we're going to have, look like we're going to block. You can see that Zach Tom and is that Aaron Banks? Is that Belton? That's a huge miss by me. That's Jordan Morgan. It's off-season brain, right? And I just, I saw a guard and I was like, that can't be Jordan Morgan, right? Curious to see how he does. That's a whole other video we might do later this offseason. But you can see that they're getting ready to pull into space. Unfortunately, Morgan can't get off that block. But we got Tom in space. We got Banks in space. We finally got Elton Jenkins in space. So now Kraft ends up being a tight end screen. Reads this well, but I want to pause it here. Again, all the notions I had about him are just big, burly after the catch, breaking tackles. Forget how fast he is sometimes. Just watch the speed here. Reads that block well, and then he's just kind of going. And then separating, like kind of play speed we're talking about when it comes to Tucker Kraft. This guy can really move in space and use those blocks and separate. Like, this dude can get going. He feels that block so well. I wish Wilson holds that block. Not that it matters too much because Kraft still gets around that, but I love the separation speed from Kraft because he's the kind of player you can do stuff like this and maximize his talents by just getting the ball in his hands and trusting that he's going to make a big play afterwards by running downfield, which he does time and time again. Going to keep saying it. Led the league in yak per catch last year for reasons like this. Near the end zone, we've got Kraft right here. We got Musgrave outside of him, and then Kraft. Little arrow right there on Kraft's helmet. Just going to show that separation speed. Like, he'll be physical at the line of scrimmage with a guy like right here. He's engaging, and then he's just going to break off of it. And because this defender has to turn their hips and follow, and Kraft's just so hell-bent on moving, you can see suddenly he realizes, oh, he's releasing. I got to flip my hips and follow. Kraft just has enough play speed that you can see him easily separate by the end of that route once the ball's there, because he just keeps running, keep hustling, and by that time, because that defender had to flip his hips and react to this, he's trying to get contact on him, but the defender's more worried about contact than just hauling ass. And by the time that ball's in his hands, we have enough separation. This guy's stumbling over himself. Kraft does not slow down through contact. Like, you can hand fight with him, you can try and disrupt him. He is just way stronger than you're going to be as a linebacker in this situation. And then he's just going to win that foot race. I love the chip releases with Kraft. A little hand fighting there too to create some separation. As he engages and separates, you're going to see him swipe at that hand right there to create a little separation, a cushion. And the guy resets his hands, but like we just talked about, he's more worried about resetting his hands than getting up to full speed. And Kraft's still hauling ass, ends up getting to that end zone for another touchdown. Some added context for this play. It is late fourth quarter. The Packers are down 3 and they're driving, but it is 4th and 2. So this is a very, very high leverage situation. And we just need to get past the sticks, right? We just need those 2 yards. It's right about here. We've got this, little alignment formation. We're just going to run a hitch here and out here and then a corner with Kraft. And what I want you to pay attention to is this corner route from Kraft, because I don't think it could be better. He sells vertically, he creates separation at the route stem because he's not selling where he's going, and he creates enough of a cushion because they do a good job. Everyone's focused on those 2 yards, right? Everyone's so focused that we're breaking down on that. Kraft, gets that separation. He leans into that route. He leans his shoulder into that defender so that he can maximize his separation when he cuts. Look at all that separation he creates. The ball's already out in the air. Good job. I love throwing with anticipation, but it seems like they knew, like, hey, 4th and 2, these defenders are going to be really focused on, any short route, and we're just going to throw over the top of them with Kraft. Love this play. Love the trust in Kraft, knowing he's going to get open here, but also for Kraft, just A, the vertical speed. B, I love embracing that contact. Lean into it so you can plant off of it and almost instead of like pushing off, you can still create some subtle separation there. Really, really nice, massive play on 4th and 2 to create that separation, get a big play, get the Packers in the red zone late in the 4th quarter. And it says a lot that the Packers were going to go to a guy like Kraft this late in the 4th quarter. That's how much they believe in this guy. Capping off that drive right at the goal line, we've got Kraft here in front of Malik Heath. What I like is the initial push of this is what's going to ultimately matter. He doesn't end up sticking to this block, but we've got a defensive tackle. Sorry, the yellow is hard to see here. But 2 Krafts left. You can see that defensive tackle. He's going to slant towards Kraft. So Kraft's got to be ready to engage with that, not totally expecting it. And look at the low pad level out of his stance. Wide base, spring-loaded hips, so he's bending his knees so that he can launch into that contact, staying low. And, he may not be ready for the slant initially, but he gets his head to the side, he gets low, maybe the base is a little narrow, but he launches into there with force, widens that base, drives the legs a little bit, and yeah, this dude is much denser and going to probably win a one-on-one with a tight end. But look at how he's been displaced. He was initially slanting to get like here, and, stack this block, but because Zach Tom seals here and Kraft seals here, we've got a wide open space. And yes, this defensive tackle does disengage last second, but by then we have the seal. Jacobs lowers his pads. We get the touchdown. You got to have faith in a guy like Tucker Kraft here to be able to, again, right here, lower those pads, be prepared for that defensive tackle. Sorry, if I'm being nitpicky, he doesn't stick with the block, but I don't expect him to against a defensive tackle like that. He creates enough displacement on that snap, catches him, wide base, moves him back a yard or two to the point, if he doesn't generate any push here, then disengages, we have a much bigger problem because the defensive tackle is meeting here instead of right near the end zone and going forward. So got it, especially in a late game situation. Kraft's got to make a play. I love that from the guy, even if it's not perfect. The effort and physicality against a guy much bigger than him are absolutely there, and it leads to what ends up being the game-winning touchdown. Got a few plays from the Steelers game. Again, another breakout game, and then we'll call it a day. The Packers run one of my favorite RPO concepts, or a run-pass option, right? Like, you have the option to hand this ball off. The linemen are going to block. They're going to try to focus not to get too far upfield. But we call this, at least I call this, RPO arrow. So what we do is we, have number 1 blocking the number 1 defender, number 2 block most dangerous man or safety, and then we're just going to run to the flat with Tucker Kraft here. So we're reading that, seeing how the defense reacts, and because this backer is blitzing, we're just going to replace him with that RPO. Like, hey, perfect. We've now got numbers. We've got 3 on 2. 1, 2, 3 on 1, 2. That's a huge win for us. So we're going to take that. We're going to throw. We've got numbers. 25's got to get all the way across the formation, and Kraft's going to turn on the jets, read that block, break a tackle, break another tackle, lean forward, get into the end zone. I love a good RPO arrow, man. It's such a good one to read. Just if you can get, trying to focus on a conflict defender, typically that, backside linebacker from the run, and if he's overflowing the run or blitzing downfield instead of following that tight end, we get numbers on that outside. And, if we have a guy like Tucker Kraft that we know can, move and block it or break a tackle or two, we can have a huge play like this. I love the concept. Love the concept, especially for a team like the Packers where Matt LaFleur loves his wide receivers being capable of blocking. I hope to see this more when Kraft's back on the field because this can be a real weapon for you. There's a saying on Packers Twitter. We call it Kraft, Yak, and Cheese because the man is this guy, the master of yards after the catch. This concept definitely helps. Great play by Christian Watson here, inside release. His goal is to bring this corner with him and then try and, get in the way of this linebacker. He ends up getting in the way of 3 guys. So inside release here. So he brings this corner with him, gets in the way of the linebacker trying to follow Tucker Kraft. And then the safety drops down. So we end up getting in the way of 3 defenders here, just walling them off on accident. That is ideal. That is an ideal result for this route from Watson. And it just leaves Kraft to be like, all right, I got the ball in space. Now watch what I can do. A reminder just how much faster he is. Little note, this has nothing to do with Tucker Kraft. This is a Watson thing. Having coached wide receivers, man, you could block him in the back and get an easy foul. And what he does is my favorite thing when you can't engage a guy. Airplane block. It's the easiest thing to do. Just get your hands wide, kind of like box out like it's a rebound. This is a completely legal play. Just get in the way and slow his progress down. You can see he gets his arms wide. It's exactly what we do in this situation. Perfect, because that defender now cannot get to Kraft. We win that foot race. Kraft's off to the races. He's one-on-one. He's going to throw a defender off of him because, of course, he is. We've got another lead blocker because of the effort, and then we're going to lower those pads. Take a couple shots in the process, but huge shout-out to Christian Watson with the airplane block. I'm obsessed with airplane blocks. When I see them in a game, I get really excited. You can see how that springs Kraft and gives him that one-on-one situation. And then I love it, man. Like, oh, do not tackle me high. You're going to regret trying to tackle me high. And then he ends up getting another, 5-8 yards out of it. This was the Kraft yak and cheese game, honestly. I mean, tons of yak. Let me pull it up. I mean, this guy had 143 yards after the catch in this game. This is a really fun one. We got inside releases from Savion and Kraft. But we're going to do something interesting. Savion's going to end up breaking inside, and Kraft is going to get an inside release as well, but break out. And you're going to see it impacts the safety who's going to drive on Savion Williams. As soon as we plant, you can see him drive. So suddenly we've got a cushion on this outside. Love reads it well. Little bit of OPI, but it's so subtle. It's not an obvious shove off, but Kraft adjusts to it well. It's maybe a slight push off. I can't tell. To me, it looks a little like a push off. But beside the fact he's off to the races, he's gonna stiff arm that guy to make him lose balance and win that foot race, break that tackle, stiff arm again, keep going. It cracks me up. Like when you try to tackle him high, he just gets so excited. He's like, yes, I dare you. I'm going to throw my hand into your face. I'm going to throw you off balance. I'm going to break a tackle. He's always going for the face stiff arm or running through a guy, just throwing a guy off. When you're just that much bigger than the DBs, it must be so fun just getting to, ragdoll guys all the way downfield for another huge play. This ends up being too easy for Kraft. We're going to get a man coverage tell. And how are we going to know it's man coverage? Because Watson's going to come across the formation. Instead of bumping the coverage, we're going to have that DB. I said Jalen Ramsey's just going to follow him across the formation. So now we go, all right, very clearly, we got man coverage. Eyes are on the receivers. So what we're going to do with Kraft, he's going to feign outside and run inside, almost like a Texas route for a running back. But just feign in and then break inside. So we're just going to get him to drift off his landmark slightly, then cross his face. That's all we're doing. You can see he starts getting width. Then as soon as Dobbs crosses his face, Kraft's like, perfect. I'll just cut inside. Got a ton of space here. Let me just win that foot race too while I'm at it. Just the play speed to just separate off that. And then the iconic, you see that I do this. Just great play on a Sunday Night Football game. What a performance he had in this one. Just so many huge explosive plays, and to be able to run around like this, just this angle route, and obviously nice concept, nice job by Dobbs getting across the defender's face too. But another example of that play speed that I kind of forgot was there, man. Just so much faster than I remember, and that makes him such a scary player in space. Kraft has become a cult hero already in Green Bay, and I mean, how could he not be? He comes from a small town of like 500 people in South Dakota, in Timberlake, South Dakota. And then just, bursts onto the scene. They draft 2 tight ends in his year, and he just clearly becomes the tight end 1, becomes a captain last year, and just really develops into everything the franchise wants out of a tight end. And good news is it seems like he's on track for week 1, and if he gets to play all of next season and looks good, I think the sky's the limit for this guy. I know George Kittle is the gold standard of tight end play right now, but I really think Kraft's a lot closer than people realize to that. We're talking about an elite tight end who's rightfully going to get paid a lot of money very soon. It could even be this week. We'll see. But I hope you appreciate this video. If you made it all the way to the end and you're not subscribed, please do so. Thank you for all the support the past week. It's been crazy watching how fast the channel's grown in June for a football channel. That's really crazy. But stay tuned. We got tons of fun stuff in the coming weeks, months, years. So really appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you next time.